I'm being completely honest, I didn't have very high expectations of the food in Dublin, Ireland. After spending a whirlwind of time in Dublin, I was legitimately shocked at the food we were served. So in this video, I'm going to answer the question, is the food in Dublin, Ireland good? We'll talk about the traditional Irish dishes to try, meal prices in Dublin, whether you should tip, where to find the best pubs, and more. Plus, I'll share everything we ate in Dublin and give you our honest opinion of it all. Hi everyone, I'm Antoinette and welcome back to my channel. At Frolic and Courage, I like to help you plan well, have fun, and travel the world. Today, I want you all to be prepared for your trip to Dublin in terms of food, so let's just get right into it. As a tourist, I had more than a few questions about eating in Dublin, Ireland, like, what are some traditional Irish dishes that I should try while in Dublin? First off, there is a growing emphasis on using locally sourced ingredients in Dublin's restaurants. Many chefs take pride in showcasing Ireland's rich culinary heritage by incorporating fresh, seasonal produce and locally sourced meats and seafoods into their menus. When you think of Irish food, think of comfort food. Traditional Irish dishes to try in Dublin can be broken down into 4 major categories: meat, seafood, root vegetables, and dairy. For meat, particularly beef, lamb, and pork. While in Dublin, you should try coddle, which are basically leftovers, most commonly consisting of sliced pork sausages, bacon, onions, chunky potatoes, salt, pepper, and herbs. It dates back to the first Irish famine of the late 1700s, where anything that you can eat got thrown in a pot. You gotta do what you gotta do, right? But today, the dish is still served hot. There are also Irish stews, and there are many to try in Dublin. There's Irish stew with lamb, potatoes, small onions, and seasoning in a thick broth. There's also the Dublin stew, made essentially with coddle, and sometimes might even have traditionally boiled tripe in it. Then there is a beef stew, which is grass-fed, hormone-free, and slow-cooked and served with a Guinness broth, also known as beef and stout stew. If you're looking to try a stew in Dublin, try Boxty. Boxty Restaurant serves a trio of stews with this combination. In terms of meat, there's also the Irish shepherd's pie, which is ground lamb, peas, and vegetables baked under loads of fluffy Irish cheddar mashed potatoes. We ate a hearty Irish stew and shepherd's pie from the Oak. And speaking of meat, there's steak. The Irish weather and lush green landscapes are perfect for raising cows. So when in Dublin, try all the natural grass-fed, hormone-free steaks. In addition to meat, there's seafood. Dublin is an island in the Atlantic Ocean, so eat all the seafood you can. Like cod, which is traditionally in fish and chips, which are large and juicy pieces of cod deep fried in batter and served with a hearty side of fries or chips, sometimes with a pea puree and tartar sauce. We ate fish and chips from the Morrison Grill, and the fish was fried to a golden, crunchy perfection. In the city, stop by Leo Burdock, which is Dublin's best known and oldest fish and chip shop, or also known as a chipper. They've been serving the best fish and chips since they first opened their Christchurch location in 1913. In terms of seafood, you can also try oysters, mussels, and sea bass. And Hun tried a seared sea bass with parsley potatoes, fine beans, and a citrus beer blanc from the Morrison Grill. There's also smoked salmon, mackerel, or freshwater trout. There's the Dublin Bay prawns, which are like slim, mini orange-pink lobsters. And there's also the famous seafood chowder, which is a delightful mixture of seafood like mussels, prawns, smoked fish, whether cod or salmon, potatoes, onions, dill, butter, seasoning in a white wine creamy and butter thickened broth. I tried my first seafood chowder at Dakota on a food tour, and we'll talk more about that later. In addition to meat and seafood, there are root vegetables to try, like boxy, which are like potato pancakes, colcannon, which are mashed potatoes with shredded cabbage, onions, and butter. There are turnips, there are carrots, and there are potatoes, of course. Dublin knows how to do potatoes very well, and they come paired with or in almost every traditional Irish dish that you order. There are parsnips, which are related to carrots but lighter in color, and of course onions. In Dublin, also try dairy, like yogurt and cheese, such as the Cashel Blue and Duras cheeses, which are smooth, creamy cheeses to die for. There's also ice cream, so check out Murphy's on Wicklow Street. They have some of the best homemade ice cream and these thick homemade ice cream sandwiches that looked oh so good. If you've ever heard of Kerrygold butter, then yes, you've got to try the butter in Dublin. The butter is made with milk from grass-fed cows. Irish butter has a higher fat and a lower water count than American butter, so it tends to be more yellow, creamy, and tasty. Some other things you can try in Dublin are the soda bread, which is flour, baking soda, salt, and buttermilk prepared without yeast. It's a dense and tender bread, but you gotta slather on that butter. It's usually eaten at breakfast with tea, at lunch with cold meats or cheese, at dinner with soup or stew or other main dishes. You can also try oats, because before potatoes in Dublin and Ireland, there were oats. So try oatmeal and fresh oats mixed with your yogurt. Also try the apples. The Ard Cairn russet apples, which are sweet dessert apples with an orange-red color. We tasted a warm and savory Ard Cairn russet apple tart tatin, topped with buttermilk ice cream from the Morrison Grill. The ice cream was okay, but the tart was divine. There are also some drinks you should try in Dublin while you're there. Of course, Guinness. Guinness is a serious business in Ireland. This beer is so serious that if you ask for a pint, you will automatically get a Guinness, and they even have ambassadors making sure the Guinness is stored and poured properly throughout the city. And it's like, no lie, you'll see the vans like driving all throughout the city. I'm personally not a beer drinker, but people say the Guinness tastes better in Dublin, so try it and let me know what you think. And if it doesn't come in a Guinness glass, then honestly, don't drink it, because you may not even be drinking Guinness. Another drink you should try is the Irish whiskey, like Jameson or Tilly's. Dublin has an undercurrent of delicious cocktails, so don't forget to try one. We tried the Armoured Car, which is an eloquent combination of West Cork rum cask whiskey, peach green iced tea, pineapple juice, honey syrup, and fresh lemon juice, and the Bow Street Julep, which contains fruitier notes of Jameson whiskey with homemade apricot and marmalade syrup, and mixed all in with Angostura and rhubarb bitters, swizzled with mint and crushed ice. It was refreshing and delicious. And if you're not into beer or whiskey, try cider. I really like the cider. It's like sparkling apple cider with a lot less sugar and a hint of alcohol. It's clean, fresh, and delicious. And finally, while in Dublin, try the Irish coffee, which is Irish whiskey, hot coffee, and sugar, which has been stirred and topped with a thick cream. Those are some of the main dishes in Dublin you should try. And of these traditional Irish foods, which one would you be most interested in trying? One of the meats, one of the seafoods, some of the root vegetables, some of the drinks? Let me know in the comments down below. Another question you may have about the food in Dublin is, where can I find authentic Irish pubs with traditional Irish food in Dublin? But honestly, the pub scene in Dublin is amazing. Just imagine walking all over the city under gray clouds, cold temperatures in the 40s and 50s. Your hands and your face are cold, and you slip into a pub with dark, ambient lighting, a roaring furnace, large wooden tables, and the smell of a hearty stew emanating from the kitchen. Family and friends are smiling, laughing, and engaged in deep conversation. Strangers are sitting at the bar and making new friends, and it smells like home and it feels like home. And this is the pub atmosphere in Dublin. Pubs are social places where people come to chat, drink, and sometimes eat. They're generally open from around 11 a.m. to 11:30 p.m. and sometimes later, depending on which alcohol license the pub has. They're also family affairs with little kids welcome until around 8 p.m. You can find authentic Irish pubs serving traditional Irish food all over Dublin. Places like the Brazen Head, which is the oldest pub. There's the Stag's Head, O'Donoghue's, the Harry Lemon, and O'Neill's Pub and Kitchen are popular choices. You can check the website to see if the pubs accept reservations or not. In Dublin, you'll find some pubs don't accept reservations, but restaurants do. So plan accordingly and try to arrive early. And when you arrive, don't be surprised if there's not a host waiting to seat you. Just seat yourself at an open table if you can find one. Pubs are also smoke-free. Woohoo, I love it! And don't forget to say sláinte or cheers with your newfound pub buddies while you're there. And I also mentioned Ireland is known for the beef, so what are the best steakhouses in Dublin? Where can you find the best steak in Dublin? There are multiple steak restaurants in Dublin, like the Morrison Grill. At the Morrison Grill, which is part of the Morrison Hotel, I ate a hand-cut 28 days dry-aged fillet of Hereford beef. It was cooked in a 500°C Jasper coal grill oven, and my steak retained the natural juiciness of the meat and was perfection. You can also find great steak at FX Buckley Steakhouse, which has multiple locations around the city and was voted one of the best steakhouses in the world by worldsbeststeaks.com. You can also get a steak at Shanahan's on the Green and the Bull and Castle. With all this meat, are there any vegetarian or vegan-friendly restaurants in Dublin? And yes, there are. I'm not personally vegetarian or vegan, but Dublin has a growing number of vegetarian and vegan-friendly restaurants, cafes, and eateries. Places like Cornucopia, Umi Falafel, and Brother Hubbard offer delicious plant-based options. And so, what is the typical cost of a meal in a restaurant in Dublin? On average, you can expect to pay around maybe 15 to 30 euros for a main course at a mid-range restaurant in Dublin. The prices can honestly vary depending on the restaurant, how high-end or not it is, and the dish that you choose. Meats, of course, are gonna be more expensive along with seafood. If you're looking for something that's a little bit more, budget friendly, then check out the grocery stores and supermarkets for pre-made sandwiches and sides that are made daily. Well, is it customary to tip in Dublin? And if so, how much? Tipping in restaurants in Dublin is appreciated but not always expected. A tip of around 10 to 15% is customary for good service, but check the bill first as some restaurants may include a service charge. All meal prices include tax, which is known as VAT. Can you find international cuisine options in Dublin, or is it mainly just Irish food? Well, Dublin offers a diverse range of international cuisine options, including Italian, Asian, Middle Eastern, and so much more. Areas like Temple Bar, South William Street, and Capel Street have a concentration of restaurants offering international dishes. What are the typical dining hours in Dublin? Do restaurants close early? What time do people eat in Dublin? What time do people in Dublin eat dinner? The dining hours in Dublin can vary, but most restaurants are open for breakfast from around 7 to 11 a.m. A typical Irish breakfast has bacon, sausage, eggs, potatoes, beans, soda bread, or toast, tomatoes, mushrooms, and white or black pudding. We ate breakfast at Keogh's Cafe. Nestled in Dublin city center, they offer a delightful array of teas and coffees alongside freshly baked muffins, scones, and cakes. The cafe has a small yet tempting menu of hot breakfasts, lunch, and dinners. We ate a cheese and ham omelet and scrambled egg platter with sun-dried tomatoes and avocado, peppermint tea, and fresh orange juice with bread and fresh jam. The portions were hearty and delicious and filled us up until our food tour in the afternoon. Lunch is typically from 12 to 3 p.m. and early dinner starts around 6 p.m., but most Dubliners have dinner from around 8 to 10 p.m. Some restaurants and pubs may close the kitchen earlier, although the bar will remain open around 5 p.m. on Fridays and weekends, and especially on Sundays. Some places offer early meal service specials between 3 and 6 p.m. if you can catch them. So those are pubs and restaurants. Are there any food markets or food tours that I should check out in Dublin? And yes, absolutely yes. You can visit places like the Temple Bar Food Market for a taste of local produce. Food tours such as the Irish Food Trail Walking Tour of Dublin and Dublin Walking Food Tour provide a guided culinary experience throughout Dublin's food scene. We went on the 3-hour Walking Irish Food Trail where we received hearty, full-size portions of traditional Irish food and drink. Our guide, Grania, has her degree in Irish history and is a whiskey connoisseur. So needless to say, we learned so much about the history of Ireland and the food and drink of the city that I left full of food and knowledge. The experience was so worth it. And I can't stand a food tour that'll only give you like a little teeny piece of cheese or meat, and no, I want hearty portions. And the Irish Food Trail with Grania, she showed up and showed out for us. I highly recommend it, and I'll put a link to our tour in the description box down below for you to check out. So what other dining tips are there? What else do you need to know about eating and dining in Dublin, Ireland? There are more tips, like when at a pub, order drinks and meals at the bar, and then the food will be brought to your table. If you're in a group and say someone pays for your drink at the bar or at a table, it's courteous to buy a drink for them in return. This is called buying a round, and if you're at a table with a lot of people, there may be a lot of rounds, so pace yourself accordingly. Also, don't order offensive drinks such as the Irish car bomber or a black and tan. There are very strong negative political and historical connotations, and some bartenders may not even serve you. Some Dubliners liken them to going into a bar in New York City and asking for a Twin Towers shot on September 11th. Y'all, just don't do it. Other things you should know about dining in restaurants in Dublin is that pubs and restaurants may be larger than you think. If you walk by an establishment and see a few full tables, you might think, oh no, there's not enough seating for me, and that may not be the case at all. Oftentimes, there is more seating in the back of the restaurant or down a staircase. So places may be a little bit larger than you think. Also, corned beef and cabbage is really not a thing in Ireland, and you won't really see it on the menu. Originally, it was bacon and cabbage. Corned beef and cabbage is an Irish-American staple. The Irish immigrants couldn't afford Irish bacon, so they found corned beef was cheaper and the cabbage was readily available, so that's what they ate, and they did what they had to do, but you won't really find it in Dublin. So, after all this, is the food in Dublin, Ireland good? And yes, the food was good, and I was generally shocked at the food. Since most of the Irish food I've had in the US, with the exception of maybe one place, it hasn't been good, so I guess I expected the food to be a little bland or flavorless and lacking depth and soul. But I was so pleasantly surprised by everything I ate, and I honestly mean everything was delicious. The food in Dublin was hearty and warm and well seasoned with herbs and spices and bursting with flavor. It was stick to your ribs, hearty and delicious. I cannot tell you how pleasantly surprised I was. We had such a fun time in Dublin, and to see our full experience, check out our Dublin vlogs and also my video on how to get around Dublin on a budget if you're planning to visit, and I'll put that playlist at the end of this video. To sum it all up, my favorite traditional Irish dish of the entire trip was the seafood chowder. I love clam chowder, and the seafood chowder in Dublin made my little clam chowder seem like a little rinky-dink appetizer. It was hearty and full of delicious seafood, big clams and mussels, and oh, after a cold day walking around, you go in and have a hot bowl of the chowder. It was so good, so good. The most shocking and surprising thing I had was the shepherd's pie. And there was something about like a ground beef or lamb and peas and mashed potatoes that didn't really appeal to me. But when I tried the shepherd's pie, I was blown away. I mean, that ground lamb was sitting underneath the perfect blanket of cheesy, creamy, buttery potatoes that were crisp just ever so slightly in the top. And when I dipped it into the ground lamb with the peas and the carrots that had such a sweet taste to it, I was blown away. It was so good. It was really good. I couldn't stop eating it. It was so good. The entire dish just came together in a way that was so lovely. If you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to click subscribe to my channel. Turn on that notification bell so you'll be notified when the next Dublin video will drop. If you have any questions about my food experience in Dublin, please leave it in the comments down below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video. Bye.